Dziękuję i wybaczcie, but now I switch to English because you would have too much fun of my Ukrainian accent. Okay, so I'm here to tell you why we believe, at my company, at my team, that Chernobyl is the best location to make a survival horror game that we are working on right now. We will not talk much about the game itself because it's still in the pre-production phase, but I think I will show you the design and production perspective a bit, why we have chosen this subject as a matter of our next project. So first of all, just small introduction to what we do. The Farm 51 is a video game development company from Poland. We work on the games for like 13 years already. As a company, we make Necrovision, Deadfall, Painkiller, and this and last year we have released Chernobyl VR Project, which is a virtual documentary about the Chernobyl catastrophe in VR, and Get Even, which is a psychological thriller, a video game for PC and for consoles. And today we are focusing on two projects. One is World War III, which is a multiplayer online shooter that I will not cover today at all. And second is Chernobyl, with the working title Catastrophe of Time, that I will spoil a bit, but just a bit, and more on the production and design perspective of why we have chosen this subject for our new game. So first of all, the most interesting thing from this question perspective, what's the best location to make survival horror game, is because Chernobyl is real. And if you think about the design of survival horror game, then if this game is gonna be realistic, then of course the word real is very connected to the realistic, but it's also giving you a big sense of presence and very strong hook. Like you generally know we are on Ukraine, so you generally will know what this location or what this place is all about, and it already touches some vibes even by its name. It doesn't need much more just to say Chernobyl to create some emotional hook with the words like, for example, horror, because it is a tragic story, and with the words like the survival, because it is a story about environmental catastrophe that brought a big threat to the whole Ukraine or to the whole Europe or maybe even to the whole world. But second, it's dangerous. So if we say about the survival horror, no matter what kind of survival horror is more survival or more horror, it's still about overcoming some dangers or trying to pick up challenges related to some dangers. And obviously, Chernobyl was and still is a very dangerous place. First of all, because of the radiation. Second, because of the chemical substances. This sign is not about radiation. This sign is warning before about the toxins that are here, because there was a lot of industrial work going on here in Chernobyl. They were producing weapons. They were producing parts of the chemical substances that were used to produce weapons, and these substances are still there. So generally, if you are not very careful exploring Chernobyl, it's very dangerous. Of course, today also, because this place is decaying, the buildings are collapsing, it's also dangerous. But this place is also creepy. If you move from the survival, because dangerous was about survival, but creepiness is about horror. The remainings of people who lived there, what was left out of there, even without any rework, like this, just the photography taken with the smartphone. It's not staged much. It is just like pick up your phone, find the right spot and make a photo, and you got in some very, very creepy mood that brings all these ghost stories about the people who live there, and maybe they are haunting you because some of them died there. This is very strong on the horror side. So if we just focus on two words, survival and horror, we are generally here. And that would be enough just to pick up the subject for the story. But of course, we can go further. Like, see, it can be also delusional. This is the photo that we have taken during our last session. And when we were showing this photo to some of the people, they said, oh, what did you do? You photoshopped some chick inside the Chernobyl location. No, actually, we didn't Photoshop her. It looks like she's Photoshopped, but she's not Photoshopped. She was really standing there, and we are making her photos. Of course, there is a lot of delusional elements here, because first, it's autumn. It was very cold. Actually, she was very poor girl, standing in this, tight dress. Normally, she was wearing a big jacket, and just to make a photo, she was removing jacket. We were making photos. She was dressing again. But anyway, we wanted to create a kind of ghost story here. I will not spoil more, but you may imagine that she is not a natural part of this environment here and now, like from the perspective of modern time when the whole Chernobyl is destroyed and this beautiful girl is showing up. But anyway, if you want to create some psychological tricks or so delusional tricks in Chernobyl, you don't need to do more than just simply take this real location and putting something that doesn't fit this location. And of course, Chernobyl tells the story, what is also important, because if you want to tell the deep story, and this is what we try to do, if you check the Get Even game, you may see that it was very important for our previous game, and for the next game telling the story will be also important. So, of course, Chernobyl as a location tells the story. Everywhere you got some signs of the story that happened there, everywhere you know that this place is about something. It's about, of course, this big catastrophe, and it's also about the stories of people who live there. So, of course, this place is dramatic. If you just look at this picture, normally you would probably not imagine this kind of situation that you have big room and all this room is covered with papers. And all these papers are also stories, and some of these stories are dramatic. Of course, this was a library, and most of these papers in this particular room are not very dramatic because they are just books, but there are also places when you got letters of people, for example, post office. And these are the stories of the people that are often dramatic. Of course, it's also epic location. You may remind this photo or this scene from the Stalker game, because there is a lot of big industrial construction that are decaying, collapsing. They are looking really cool. They are rusty. You would like to explore them in normal. It's not very safe to climb there. Of course, everybody does it, but it's not very safe to climb there. If the game, you would really go there because this is epic and this is catching you, like, I want to go there and look for something. And of course, in the game, you can go there and look for something, and it's kind of epic hook to motivate you to go. And this places has its mysteries. What you see here is the Duga radar, called the Russian Woodpecker, or the Moscow Eye. It's the huge intercontinental radar that was supposed to be used to detect the nuclear strike from the USA to the Russian or to the Soviet Union. It was never fully operational, but it was built near to the Chernobyl power plant because it was consuming a lot of energy. It was consuming so much of energy, like the entire city. And there's a lot of conspiracy theories that the whole catastrophe in Chernobyl was related to soon to be start of working of this radar, because this was separate military operation, like this built this giant radar, and it was somehow connected to the fact that it was consuming a lot of energy. And of course nobody really knows, but there is a lot of conspiracy theories about this radar, that, for example, it was used to control human minds with the electromagnetic waves. You can actually even today read the conspiracy theories about similar radars that is operational in the United States, that are also supposed to control human minds by these electromagnetic waves, and it was supposed to do different things than just detecting missiles. Nobody knows, but still these places has some mysteries that are really good to incorporate into the story of the game, or to be used as the part of the background of any other story that we would like to tell without this thing. And of course, this location is spectacular. It has elements that are industrial, heavy, but also it has elements that are beautiful and unbelievable. Like, for example, you get a lot of plants that are growing inside the buildings. It creates very odd feeling when you enter the building and you see the trees that are coming out of the windows. But it's very common view there. And at top of it, this whole place tells the story of the lost happiness, because, as you may know, Pripyat, the city that was built near Chernobyl power plant, was actually the best possible place to live in the 18th it was built as the dream town. If you may imagine, the best, the most expensive, the most interesting places to live, where you got a good job, where you got a lot of shops, where you could buy everywhere. In 80s, it was not popular. So Pripyat was the city of dreams for most of the people living there. They were mostly young people. The average age of the people living in Pripyat was about 25 or 26, because there were people who were brought there, like, we'll be building the power of the Soviet Union, and they have bananas in the shops. They had piano rental service, like if you wanted to play piano, you don't need to buy one, you could rent one. This piano rental service is still there in Pripyat. There's a lot of pianos that people were borrowing just to play pianos for a while. That was crazy, of course, if you look at it from today's perspective, but they have free swimming pools. Like, it was just 50,000 people living there, so it was like very small district of Kiev, but they have 3 swimming pools, 3 kindergartens, and a lot of schools and so on. So generally it was a dreaming town, and we, of course, in some part, we try to recreate it a bit in the game without spoiling that much, but it creates this drama. Like, these old people was very happy, or was trying to be very happy, and then on one day there was a big catastrophe, and then lost everything. And at the same point, this place can be very... Sorry. Okay, I guess Windows stopped to work. Configuring Windows updates. If you just want to know, okay, we'll try to go through this, or maybe you got the other laptop. I'm sorry, I don't control it. It's shutting down. It started to reinstall some Windows shit.
Do you start any question, maybe?
Let's see. Maybe it will start. It will start in 1 minute. Then I don't have many slides to finish, but the ones I had are cool. Okay, let's have a short break for questions before we start the game. Do you have any questions so far? Okay.
So you were... Не работает? Раз.
Yes.
There, how did you get permission to do that? With whom were you cooperating to
Well, it's
the access?
we are working in Chernobyl for more than 2 years already, because first we have been working on Chernobyl VR Project, which is the documentary. So generally, Chernobyl is open for the tourists as far as you get the permission from the agency that runs the zone, and you get the guide from this agency. So the first, what you need to enter the zone to make any photos or film, you can arrange it directly with the DASV agency that controls the zone, or you can go to any touristic tour who does it for you. And then you can go to Chernobyl, and then you can see some just selected places, because normally you are not going inside the power plant, you are not going inside the buildings, you are not going into many places on the touristic tour. So we have been working directly with both touristic companies and this agency, and even some authorities of Kiev here to get better permissions to allow us to visit places that are normally not available, because we have been classified as a research group. So generally, if you just want to go and make your photos and movies, it's very easy. If you want to grab the data for longer time or use drones that are flying around these objects, it requires special permission, because a nuclear power plant is still strategic object. So, for example, you cannot use drone normally flying over this, but we got a special permission by meeting directly with this agency and asking them for it, and promising them that they will not blow up anything. Yes? Are we there? Well, generally, it's not like it's a big problem with authorities. It's a problem with lack of order. Like, no matter how much paperwork you will do, always when you enter the zone, then some of the guardians will realize that, but on this document you don't have this stamp, so I'm sorry, we will not let you in. Then you take your phone and you have on your phone like very important guy in Kiev, then you call very important guy in Kiev, then he tells you to call other number, then you call very important lady in Slavutic or somewhere, then you call very important lady in Slavutic, and then after 2 hours you are entering the zone. That is how it works normally. Okay, let's go further. So, of course, because it's dark and heavy, and it creates a big contrast to be beautiful, because this is the fight between the nature and between the industry, and of course it can be used as the really nice art setting. This is actually not from the perspective of the survival horror game, but it's from the perspective of making very atmospheric and moody game, and using this contrast to emphasize horror. Like you can explore the places that are looking very nice and beautiful, and then enter the places that are totally creepy, and it changes your mood a lot. Or they can be both dark and beautiful. Like by combining these two elements, we can create a lot. Of course, all these things you have seen there, except this, are not staged. They are simply looking like this. We just made these photos. We just using them as the reference for the game to make the game look exactly like this, or almost exactly like this. And we generally try to stick as much to the real feeling of this place as possible. And it's full of contrast, because you got color contrast between nature and industrial, between the decay and expanding nature, blossoming up trees and so on. And nature and human-based constructions are blended sometimes in a very strange way, in the ways that, like, you would never expect. It's showing the decay and the stability of human power, because generally the nature takes over the Chernobyl. There is the more and more nature every year in Chernobyl, and less of the human remains in the Chernobyl. And going back quickly to the design itself, it has cool, sophisticated structures to explore. Like you are open areas, closed areas, you got outdoor, indoors, you got basement, you got big buildings, small buildings, you got everything you would like to explore in the game. The zone itself is very huge, but it's limited. So you can limit the area of your game naturally, because the zone has first 10 kilometers perimeter, then 30 kilometers perimeter. It's all closed. You cannot easily get in and out. So if you want to limit the zone of your game, what is at some point always needed in every game, it has natural limitation. And you got barriering option everywhere. Like, you know, in the games there is usually problem when you put some let's say illogical barrier, like you don't want player to go there, so you put some invisible barrier, or you put some fence or so on. But in Chernobyl these barriers are naturally placed, and in the game we can move them a bit, because who will prove that it is wrong. But if you want player to don't go this part, we put the radioactivity sign, or we can put the barbed wire, and it's normal that players will not be allowed to go there. But of course not because we don't want player to feel free exploring, but there are always places in the game when we need to player to limit from exploration. And what is interesting, the game has natural hideouts design. This is the place, main place of the Pripyat city, and I remember like for 2 or 3 days we have been complaining or arguing in the company, okay, if we want to create this square, how the player would hide, because this is just the flat square. Okay, and then we have just took photos and we find out that there are some hideouts, like there are some holes in the ground where player could hide from the threat or from the enemies, and we just gone there and we have made more photos of them, and we have even made, as you see on the photo, some visual prototype, like player entering or leaving the hideouts, and they naturally place even in some unexpected place. And of course, there is a lot of natural resources, so if the survival game is about also crafting or collecting the resources to live, so don't bother if this plant, I don't know what is it, it's really, okay, if it should be collected or not, it's just the concept that we were able to take. But of course, there is a lot of plants, including the agricultural remainings, the plants that player could somehow use as his resources. But there is also a lot of scavenger supplies, like chemical substances, like metal, like construction elements that were naturally using this, because there was a lot of industrial facilities back there. So if you want to have crafting in the game, if you want to use player to give player ability to make some tools, then you are free to do so. And there is ton of loot items, like a lot of objects that are normally left there. You can collect them, you can watch them, you can use them as the story hints or knowledge sources for the player that are naturally telling the story of this place, and they can be also added in natural way by us to tell more of the story or to tell the story related to the game. And you can interact with the fauna because there is a lot of animals living there, some of them wild, some of them are wild, some of them are half wild. Generally, it adds a lot of life to this location, and it also creates this post-apocalyptic feeling that nature took over the places. So you can have companions, like there is a lot of dogs there. They are very friendly. They can guide you to different places. They can show you the traces of some substances. They can help you avoid some enemies if you just train them a bit. Again, natural element of Chernobyl environment. Or melt your heart a little because they are sometimes very cute and sweet if you are into this kind of mood. And at the end of this, Chernobyl allows us to save on concept art because, as you saw, I was just showing you photos. We don't do much of the concept art here in this project because we believe this location is beautiful itself so much that, or interesting so much that it's enough. And we can save on facial dialogue animations, of course, because most of the characters doesn't have to do any facial animations. It was bonus, but it's still working well because so far we don't have facial animator at the team, so we are okay with the dialogues, as you see. And you can be always surprised by how many crazy things you may found there. So if you want to know about the project, we'll be releasing some info next year, some bigger info. This is actually first time when I'm talking publicly about this project. You can follow us on Instagram when we put all these photos and more. Or on my Twitter, I'm also getting some more about this project. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Wojciech, for your really great speech. It was very useful. Have anybody a question? We have no time, but we have a question.
Hello, thank you. I was in Chernobyl 3 times for the last 2 years, and I have one question. How many time you spend to photo all of the stuff which you need?
Well, we still didn't photo all the stuff we need. We plan to do it within next 2 years. So generally, just to give you a short glimpse, to recreate one room from one building, we need to spend about 1 to 2 hours there making photos or scanning. And if you multiply it by the number of rooms or buildings you want to create, it gives you long weeks spent in. So I spent few weeks in Chernobyl, and it's still gonna to be spent 5 to 10 weeks inside the zone to finish gathering all the materials.
Yeah, and also there is some places which you can't enter even without permission because they were already flooded, or we send basement in the hospital area is now flooded with sand.
Yes, so for the places like this, we are recreating them not from the actual part that was flooded with water, but we are, for example, scanning the part that was not flooded from the other building and looks exactly the same. Fortunately, most of the buildings inside the zone was built within the same plans. We did the same construction, so if some room is totally broken, we can find another room that looks exactly the same, scan it, and put it into the place in the game if we need it.
Okay.
Okay, I will be around if you want to talk more. I can ask you more questions later.
You can continue your speech and dialogue inside or outside even. Thank you.